All
like Bill
right.
Riley.
Yeah, you're being recorded, so don't say anything weird. Well, tell me, Dom, I've never met you, so give me your quick MySpace bio.
Yeah, man. So Dom Jenkins here. Been in real estate for about I've been licensed for about 8 months, but I've been around it for years. My wife was licensed when we lived in South Carolina. I actually started investing in land while we were in South Carolina.
Okay.
Um, so I've been through the home buying process and the home selling process quite a few times. We owned two homes in South Carolina, sold it. And then, the last one that we sold moved here to Texas. As my wife, she got a position at Lockheed, so went through that whole relocation process. So yeah, and I'm a veteran, so I'm very familiar with the VA process.
Oh, well, I'm gonna say thank you for your service. I know that's cheesy, but what branch were you in?
I was in the Army.
Army. Okay, so you were a real
And thanks for
soldier.
your support.
Yeah, you were a real soldier. My
Yeah, I
brother was
was.
in the Marines, so he's got an opinion on the Army, but there's respect there as opposed to the Navy and the Air Force.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He was highly motivated if he was a Marine.
Yeah, he still has some of those weird Marine characteristics. Like he's still ironing sheets and undershirts, and it's a whole weird thing. But
Putting hospital corners on the bed.
yeah, it's don't even get me started. But so you mentioned you were in land investment in South Carolina. What kind of elaborate on that real quick, and then we'll just kind of jump into a full conversation. We'll throw Mark in here. We'll let him talk a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Like I said, I've always been interested in real estate. So one day, man, I was just like online, just looking for something that I could afford to, purchase, just some raw land. And I found this quarter acre lot. This was my first one. I found a quarter acre lot. It was in a community that was being developed by like private
Mhm.
landowners, like, so it wasn't like a builder. And so the community, it just so happened that it's like a 5 minute drive away from the Berkeley County Country Club, which is a golf course, in the area that I bought it in South Carolina, you know. And so, I bought it and I've just been holding on to it ever since. And so, right now I'm actually thinking about, different things to do to either, develop it, because it's big enough to put, a residential home, and still have a nice sized lot.
Mhm.
So just been thinking about some things to develop it currently. And then I have some land on Edisto Island. But it was inherited land, or it is inherited land, so I didn't have to come out of pocket for that.
There you go. That's the best way to do it. Well, cool. Very cool. So I'm assuming you're originally from South Carolina or no?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Football player.
What was that?
I said he's a football player.
At South Carolina?
No, no,
Okay.
no. So Mark actually met one of the guys, one of my friends who I played football with. He went to the University of South Carolina and he actually played in the league for about 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to get him to come out here to Texas. He's actually interested in making some moves here. So we're still trying to convince him to come out. Mark already promised him he'll have a good time. So
It's very retired athlete friendly here in Texas from what I have
In
gathered.
DFW specifically.
Yeah, with especially with all the athletes that just me and Mark know, and that's not even a lot, but a lot of baseball players, a lot of football players retire here.
yeah.
They seem to love it, so gotta be doing something right.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, and there's you hear about a lot of them because they all open up some sports facility or run some clinics or camps or leagues or something. So they're always advertising themselves, but there's a ton that are just straight up retired and playing golf.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's the life right there. Well,
Oh
Mark, you
yeah.
said you guys were recording earlier today. What were you guys working on?
We're just working on some basic information for people, and one of the things that he mentioned with buying the land and having it for a while, and just kind of picking and choosing his time and strategy. it's kind of what we talked about. We talked about real estate isn't something you're going to get rich on day one just because you got one. It takes time. Everything takes time. And so we were going over some different topics, and everybody has first time buyer topics, right? As soon as video is hard to get into, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I can't even figure out how to hold my phone for a decent camera angle here on the run. So, um, but everybody wants to get into video, and immediately they all want to talk about first time buyers. I think there is a lot of information out there for first time buyers. I think there is even, and I'm not usually Mr. Positive, but there is even good information out there for first time buyers. There's a
This
lot
is
of bad stuff too,
yeah, for
but
sure.
there's not as much out there for people who are really starting to try to get into the investment side of things, development, creative. Real estate is creative.
Yeah.
The people that do the best are creative, and
Yeah.
so there's not a lot of information out there for people who own one house and they're like, well, hey, what if I owned two or three houses? What does that look like? And so I think that is a need for people out there. Is like, okay, you got some equity. Well, what the hell is that? And what do I do with it? And so that's kind of what we were running over today. But that's what I see out there. And there's a lot of first time buyers that have been buying over the last couple years, regardless of interest rates. And now they've got homeowner questions. I'm fielding questions like crazy about, why is my escrow company increasing my monthly payment?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just a lot of information that's being missed, continuing to service the clients that we've already closed. And so that's what we were trying to focus on, is like, look, we closed you. Great. Thank you. But we're still here. Call me. You got questions. Let's help out. But a lot of people and the call centers and a lot of the, types of competitors, they're gone. Good luck getting a hold of them unless you were ready for them to pull your credit.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I got a new client that I brought on yesterday, and he works for a title company, and we were talking about the banks that he hates to work with, or some of the lending companies that aren't, local brokers like yourself, Mark, and how they're not advising on homestead exemptions, they're not advising on property taxes, they're,
They're not even in Texas. They don't know.
or the lending company. He named a big bank specifically. I won't rename it, but you know, their lending teams are requesting things that aren't legal in Texas, or like it's not the proper paperwork, and it turns out it's a call center in Bangladesh that's handling the loan, and then you bring in the actual lender back in, and he's like, I don't. What are they asking for? And he's asking for it, and title saying, well, like that's not legal here. Like we can't do that. It's
Well,
not our
and
process.
there's title company. There's debate out there on how you're supposed to put, the ownership on title, whether or not you can be a joint tenant in Texas, and so stuff like that. That's just one. That's one little, intimate detail, but yeah, they don't know anything. They don't know about the we talked about the 50A6 rule, the cash out refinance in
Yeah.
Texas. What does that mean? And there's lenders around the country that won't even they'll do business in 49 states, but not Texas because they don't want to mess around with that local rule.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuances depending on where you're at and where you're trying to do business.
That's what happens when we send our Congress down there every other year to make up stuff.
Yeah, well, Dom, speaking of differences, what's kind of the main difference in everything here versus South Carolina? Obviously, you've got some experience out there. I don't know what your experience level is here in Texas or how long you've been here, but has there been anything that stands out that's kind of either weird, or you maybe wish South Carolina did it that way, or vice versa?
Yeah, so I'll say there are a few things that stood out to me after moving here. The first one being property taxes. The property taxes in Texas are a bit higher than the property taxes in South Carolina. And so, of course, just like Texas, South Carolina, they have HOAs and whatnot. But mud and PID communities, that was something new, when we moved here, and so that's something that, people moving here from states that don't have those need to be aware of. Granted, they're only in certain communities,
Hmm.
but you need to be aware of that. Um, and I think the third one is the different types of insurance that you need for your home. So in South Carolina, it's a different type of climate. So we would face hurricanes,
Hmm.
living in the low country, so that's a different type of insurance that you need to worry about versus here in North Texas, where you're more prone to get tornadoes and things of that nature. And
Damn.
yeah, hail, winter storms, those are things that you don't deal with in South Carolina because it's more of a tropical type environment, in Charleston.
Yeah, I have a former colleague of mine that lives in, I think it's North Carolina.
Hmm.
It's where he's originally from. He's moved back. He runs his own agency out there, and we talk from time to time and the insurance rate difference. Obviously, we work together here in Texas, so he's very familiar with it. The insurance premiums out there are wildly different.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to understand that. You see hurricane disasters and it's widespread and the flooding and everything, but people don't realize that that's a different section of insurance, whether it
Hmm.
be on your policy or completely separate. And in my opinion, hurricanes are a little bit not easier to predict, but the path of destruction is a little bit more defined as opposed to, the temperature could drop 30 degrees today here in Texas and we get hail and your roof is destroyed and you were outside in shorts, no shirt on doing yard work
Yeah.
at noon. So the drastic change is a little bit more unpredictable here and unfortunately the rates kind of, you know, show that. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
hard for people to understand that when you look at other states or even just other areas in Texas. If you go Central Texas, the rates are wildly lower than DFW, but it also has to do with, population density and the amount of homes and
Amount of
upkeep,
claims.
amount of claims.
Oh yeah.
Me and Mark have a through line about the boomers, the boomer generation. I was telling a client the other day, I was like, if you're buying a house from a boomer, I already know that roof hasn't been replaced. They're gonna be like, well, I think it's the original roof, and I was like, it was built in '98. Like, we got hit by hail 6 months ago. It should have been replaced.
Oh
But they
yeah.
just don't replace things. The older generation, they either just
But
fix
don't.
it or they just don't worry about it.
Well, a lot of people try to make the claim and then not fix it and just take the cash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's guards against that now.
There wasn't before, but
Yeah,
either way, that's one of the reasons it's already bad with weather, but it's one of the reasons that it's even worse is everyone's just making these claims that they shouldn't be making.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
But to your
exactly.
point, Greg, um, so in a place like South Carolina or some other state, Arizona, there's a lot of mortgage and call center type of places that run out of Phoenix,
Hmm.
and they'll call, they'll try to get you, pre-approved and whatever, and then you find your local realtor and everything's great. You're in contract, you've got your earnest money down, you're through your option period. Most of those people don't even know what an option period is. That's another thing that's local to Texas, and then you find out that your DTI is too high to close because the guy from out of state quoted you at $100 a month for insurance. And now that it's 275, almost $300,
Hmm.
your DTI can't handle that, and you don't have the extra cash to bring to lower have a bigger down payment to lower the payment to offset or this or that. You just don't have anything to bring to have some wiggle room. And hey, we got a problem here. And so that's my pitch for why use me as a broker local to your area. Well, I know all the rules. I know who to talk to. I know how to try to get around and circumvent those rules. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And then just making sure you're set up from the get go. I'm going to quote you a number up here, and then we're going to end up down here, right? Under promise and over deliver versus everybody else being like, all right, well, I looked at it for 5 minutes and I got to get on another call to meet this metric from my manager who's all over me and looking over my back right now. And so you're good. Call me when you get a contract by. What do you want?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that, just the corporate mindset of always producing more numbers. It kind of puts service to the back end, and actual advisement or advising of a
Yeah,
client.
and both him and our model, because he's an insurance broker, so he's the same as me, Dom, and but just different thing. And that's our model is quality over quantity. If I
Yes.
do 5, 10 deals that are really good, well, that's way better than trying to do 50 deals and a bunch of them hating me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Well, Don, so what's your plan here? You said you got licensed. Are you gonna kind of still roll with the investment side of things? Or is your plan to function as just a regular real estate agent, a little bit more
My
now that you're
plan
here?
My plan is to do both. I my plan is to be involved in both because I believe I would be able to give better direction because I'm actively involved in that, so it won't be like I'll be looking on the outside in trying to give advice, you
Hmm.
know. I'm on my third home. I've relocated. I'm a VA buyer, so I can give, you know, insight on that, not only because I'm a realtor, but because I've been there, I've done it, and investing, just, I'm still, looking to invest in other opportunities, uh, within real estate, and so I just believe that, me actually doing it, I could give better direction because, hey, this came up in this process. So I'm going to prepare you for that because it may come up in yours,
Hmm.
and it's something that, typically, people forget about it or whatever it may be. I think just being able to actually do it, you can give better direction, um, and that's just my take on that, and Mark, to touch on one of the things you said, the option period, um, coming from South Carolina, so that period they called it the due diligence period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In California, they call it contingencies. Because they're all real worried about removing contingencies to make it to the next step, and we
Uh-huh.
don't have that here.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the commercial side of things that I work with as well, they say due diligence. We've got 30, 60, 90-day due diligence period
Yeah.
to make sure it's worth us purchasing. So it's all interchangeable. I wish everybody used the same term,
Same
but
here.
Everybody's got to be different.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
everybody's got to be different. It's funny that you mentioned the experience, the firsthand experience. It's something Mark used to always uh, kind of rant back when the executive lunch was just us getting drunk at 3 o'clock on a Friday.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he probably does. He doesn't even know that
yeah, so that's
that
what the
it's
podcast
called.
is called, Executive Lunch, and it turned out, it was better for us to record these conversations and not be drinking together than it was for us to be drinking and nobody heard our opinions. But he used to always complain, not complain, but he used to always say things like, a lot of these agents that maybe he's worked with or he's met or me and him have tried to prospect to get leads from, he would say, you don't even own a home.
Hmm.
And I used to not really think too much about it, but being in insurance and, purchased a house through Mark, went from an apartment to a house. I've shopped my car insurance. I've shopped my home insurance. I've gone through the claims process.
Hmm.
I knew all those things before they happened, but having gone through them, I feel like it gives a little bit more weight and can talk a little bit more clearly about it to help people understand. And I didn't really think about it when he would talk about it or just go on his little rants. But if you're dealing with a realtor who's giving you advice on negotiating and how to budget and everything, and then you look at them and they don't own a home.
Hmm.
It's all time dependent as well, right? If
Oh
you're
yeah.
a first year agent, you're not going to own a $700,000 home. You're not going to, have
Hmm.
money everywhere. But there is something to be said about the experience side of it, and especially for you, the VA process is so specific. Something I'm very unfamiliar with. Doesn't really impact me in terms of insurance, but
Hmm.
I know Mark. There's a lot of different things with the VA loan, things you can negotiate, things in terms of down payment. Um, and I'm just saying words that I know, not I don't know what they mean, but
Well, it's
experience is a huge part. Mark owns several properties. He's gone through different types of loan programs with banks or broker products, and He's a landlord, so when he's talking to investors, he knows who's bullshitting him.
Oh yeah.
Somebody who
Oh
just
yeah.
doesn't want to pay taxes, so they're not going to file, they're not going to try to purchase properties a certain way,
And
or
it,
vice versa.
again, it takes time to become a landlord too. And do you want to be a landlord? That's a conversation we should talk about.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
you you, you, you want to invest, but or do you have the stomach for it? Are you willing to evict somebody? These things are tricky things that come up.
Oh yeah.
And but just to make sure I don't everyone doesn't think that you should own a home before you can get into real estate. Greg likes to
Right.
speak for me sometimes, but I certainly got into real estate without owning a home in the beginning, and then made it a goal and figured it out. But I would say that as soon as I really started having my own place and going through these things, the way that I can advise changed so much because we are advisors. We need to help people through the process and tell them what's going to happen before it happens. Um, but if you're young and you don't have a home, that's fine. But get in here and learn as much as you can. I mean, when I was not, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't making any money. I couldn't buy a house, but I was a part of a team and I was learning. And then that way, when I had my first home, it worked out. So getting into real estate without owning is totally acceptable and get in there right away because the earlier and the more that you learn, the better off you're going to be. But just like actually, once you have something, it's not going to make you rich right away. Just because you're in real estate doesn't mean you're an expert. Same as sports. Just because you're all right one year, what have you done for me lately? Are you going to step up to the plate and hit again, or are you going to sit down because you've been kind of stinking it up? And
Yeah.
so it's a marathon.
I agree with that. And I utilize that concept in because I haven't been licensed for, 3 to 5 years or 10 years, you know. And so, if, because I had, someone ask me, my experience in real estate, and I was honest, at that time I had only been in it for 6 months. I had only been licensed in Texas for 6 months, you know. But like I shared with them, I understand, why you asked that question. But you know, what about a more tenured agent would make you think that they would be a better fit? Because I mean, I bring to the table, I bring energy, I bring effort, and I bring education,
Mhm.
and I'm not, not to say that most people who are experienced, they don't follow up on education, they don't follow up on changes, but I'm aware of all of the changes. Like Trek just changed the the residential contract last month. That was a recent change, you know. And so I'm always up on collaborating and educating myself and making sure that I'm up on the latest and greatest news or opportunity for someone to take advantage of any program or assistance out there or any type of loan structure. That's why I like collaborating with Mark, and the fact that he is also an investor, that that adds value, and so like I agree with what you just said about being able to still be relevant even though you're newer in the
It's
game.
really it's really important and really tricky right now because I heard something last year in my like studies and everything, and it was pretty crazy, but it's like a crazy high percentage of people that have been in the business for 20 years or more are going to lose business to people who are brand new because they're not
Mhm.
keeping up with marketing and AI and
Mhm.
all this other shit that is adapting on an hourly basis. I
Yep.
talked to somebody about AI for our company yesterday. He's like, it's just not there yet. It's not ready. Give me like 2 weeks. I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be ready in 2 weeks. The fact that you can like do this whole crazy thing that's just not perfect, like AI is learning that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just because you've been in the business 10 plus years doesn't mean anything. Have you been doing business lately, right? That
Mhm.
everything always comes back to sports and my dad being an asshole to me. What have you done for me lately? What did you do to get better today?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We've
Oh
all
yeah.
got those scenarios in our lives. At some point in the sports world where you were the guy either for a day, a week, or a season, and then week turns over and suddenly you're old news and
Yep.
you didn't even really do anything wrong. So yeah, I mean it relates to our world as well. Um, But yeah, I didn't mean to say realtors have to own a home, but there is something
Yeah.
to be said about experience firsthand
And also
that is going to
someone
take you a lot further.
in it right now, trying to buy, trying to grow, doing these things like, that's really important because a lot of people will be hot, 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 and then they get comfortable, and then it gets a little cold over there. And so the market changes, the big players change. Every year is different. People retire, people get comfy, and that's perfect, right? We all want to get comfy. But it's aligning with somebody that can help you in the here and now.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that person can continue helping you throughout. Like these people call me about escrow or clients I closed years ago. So we try to stay involved. But okay, Greg always gives me final thoughts. But Dom, let's give you just final thoughts. Let's wrap this up with a bow. What's on your mind or thoughts that you like to just kind of get out there or even follow up on something we've said?
Um,
Doesn't have to be real estate. You can get wild here.
Yeah, usually
um,
we like to say something super controversial to try to get some comments.
Yeah.
oh man, man,
Well,
the
I'm just
political climate
joking.
that we're in,
Well,
man, that's
Greg spouted off about State Farm the other day, and we got like a bunch of comments on TikTok. So,
A lot of political comments. I was somewhat taking State Farm's side, but you know, people didn't like
everyone
that.
everyone else saw an opportunity to jump in. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, just help us wrap up, Dom. I mean, what's on your mind?
man. Uh, I guess I don't know, man. I think the only thing that I don't know, man. This you put me on the spot. I
I'll follow up with whatever we talked about too. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
yeah.
You get the
If
last word.
if I were to throw something out there, I would say I just think that because of the new political climate that we're currently in, I would just say I think that as Americans, we just need to ride this thing out together. That's the only thing that's on my mind right now because I see a
Well,
lot of division, right now, and I think as Americans we just need to ride this thing out and you know
and don't forget that real estate is non-political.
yeah
Investments are, they can be affected by some political things, but overall, it's we're playing long term. So 4 years at a time is not really what we're trying to calculate when we're trying to help people.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And it's you say, I mean, it's kind of a little off topic, kind of branch here, but I've been hearing a lot of people, you know, the housing affordability, and everybody thinks, you know, politics is really going to
Affordability,
help that. There are some
some
things that can help, but people always point to Austin. They were like, rents are going down because they just allow them to build, 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 build. Me and Mark went to school in Austin. Austin is not what we remember. Like the things we
Mhm.
loved about it are gone.
Yeah.
Great, rent went down, but the things that made
no,
Austin for us,
did it did it go down really, or did it just
exactly.
go down over the last 2 months that you're comparing? When
Yeah,
you compare it over 5 year periods like you should, it did not go down. Everything is
exactly.
always up and to the right.
Hmm.
Exactly. I'll
So
point to a
don't be
specific area.
short-sighted.
Yeah, I'll point to a specific area. This would be my final thought. You know, Rainy Street was where me and Mark liked to spend a lot of our time in college.
Uh-huh.
It was fun because it was a neighborhood. The houses were turned into bars. It was a cool atmosphere. It was like you were walking in and out of house parties, and
Hmm.
now it's just hotels and condos. It's completely gone. Like there's nothing there but big business, corporations, and you know that may not be for everybody. It's not what we loved about Austin, and so some of that gets lost when you're trying to
Well,
change things in the short term.
and I've got people calling me, saying, "Hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to stay in Texas because of I came from somewhere else and I've been here for a while." And so that happens everywhere. So politics and real estate, they don't mix and they don't need to mix because
Yeah.
it's longer than 4 years. That's a good thought.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's crazy you said what you just said because um I know a realtor who has he has a client who's from California and he moved here to Texas and I'm not sure exactly where he moved, but he said that his client never I wouldn't say he never, but he said that his client was reaching out to him because he's interested in moving back to California. And he said that his client said, man, to be honest with you, it's just as expensive in Texas as it is in California. It just looks different.
Hmm.
I was like, wow, I mean, I've never lived in California, but,
I
for him to
have.
say that, what's your take on that, Mark?
It's more expensive there.
It's more expensive there?
It all depends on where you go. There's some expensive parts here in Texas where
Yeah.
if you want the feel of what you came from, if you came from a big city, you're going to get the same big city prices here.
Yeah.
It like you said, property tax. They're going to get their money at some
Yeah.
point. Insurance might be higher or whatever, but uh, yeah, if you're looking for the same thing, there's really no reason to move at that point.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
that's
my
right.
thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
I think we lost Mark. He's frozen in that weird position.
Oh man.
But but Dom, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, man. It was nice to meet you. Nice chatting. Um, I don't know if you do social media or not. We'll get the stuff from Mark, but if you want to plug yourself real quick, um, where they can find you, who you work with.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So my Instagram, I should know this out, straight. Yeah, so my Instagram, man, if you type in Dom J Senior, all lowercase, you'll definitely see me. I'll pop up there. And that's also my Facebook, Dom J Senior.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. And one more question before you go.
what's
And
up?
and this has been a hot topic. So a lot of people have been saying that the Chiefs should wear jerseys that are black and white for the Super Bowl.
I'm not gonna watch the Super Bowl this year. It's very very frustrating watching their game. It's not that officiating causes them to win, but the fact that we have to talk about it every time they play is the issue.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember thinking anything about the refs during the Bills Ravens game,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was a close game. I didn't think,
it was.
but every time the Chiefs play, there's some play, whether it be 4th and 1, whether it be a late hit call that has you question everything. And I think
Uh-huh.
I think that's the problem. Not that the
Yeah.
refs are helping, but the fact that it's only applying to the Chiefs is the problem. Man, I don't I think Kelsey's overrated. I think
Oh
I think
yeah.
Mahomes is great, but I've had enough.
Yeah.
I've had enough. I told my wife the other day, everybody hated Brady and the Patriots, but like they beat the doors off of everybody.
Yeah, they
They
did.
weren't it wasn't, they got a late call that gave them that game-winning drive with 38 seconds left.
Hmm.
They just beat everybody.
Yeah.
That's the difference. What like the Chiefs had like 7 one possession games or something this year.
Yeah.
I think 3 of them were like under 5-point differences. So they're winning in a way where you question a little bit of how they get there.
Oh
I won't
yeah.
be watching the Super Bowl. I might attend a Super Bowl get together, but I will not be watching the game this year.
Oh yeah.
I just have no interest in either team. But well,
Well, hey
Dom, I
man.
I appreciate you giving us some time. We'll get this up. We usually get them up a week later, every Friday. So if we can get it up today, we will. But share it. Mark will send you a link. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to get some eyes on our conversations, and obviously, if we can work with you a little bit more, get your opinions, see what you're doing week to week, we'll keep this conversation going for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, man. I'll let you go. I got my phone's on silent, but it's blowing up, so I got to take off. But we'll talk soon.
All
Appreciate you
right,
giving us
sounds good,
time.
man. Take it easy.
Bye.
All right.